You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where this week we have two big topics. We're going to start with the England women's team. They in their test match against Australia, they lost the game, then they won the game, then they drew the game. And that happened over the space of about 6 hours. It was fantastic. It was great. And then we'll be talking about the men's side, who are in the West Indies, or leaving the West Indies now, having played 5 T20s. They go down 3-2. The death bowling's not so good. And there are some other talking points too. My name is Jack Hope, and I'm joined by just one other member of the Cricket Podcast today, Max Rowe Brown. Max, how have you enjoyed the feast of cricket that the England teams have been putting on for you over the last week?
I mean, it's been nice to see England's T20 side not go and stomp all over everyone, isn't it? It's especially nice to see West Indies back in some form of success. So that's been enjoyable. But I mean, the women's test was where it was all at, wasn't it? That was stunning.
Yeah, it was. We'll talk about that first. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be two different videos. And if you're watching on YouTube, you need to click like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify. Now I've said it. I can't stop saying it. Spotify. You need to follow.
Spotify is the one where they haven't got Joe Rogan. That's the good one.
It's the one where you won't get erroneous advice about about vaccines from a man whose job is comedian. You need to, I don't know, there's an instruction. We're not just highlighting you here. You need to like, follow, and rate us. We're up to 150 ratings there, 4.8. We'd like that to go a little bit higher. We're at least a 4.9 out of 5. I think. 4.8, that's disgraceful. And if you're over on iTunes or whatever, same deal for you. We're 4.6 on iTunes, but everyone, that's Apple people are weird. 4.5. And Twitter and Instagram at the Cricket Pod. Max, before we get on with anything else on the show, have you seen the Imran Tahir news?
Yeah, he's signed up. Hasn't he signed up to play cricket for a pottery company?
No, I don't know if it's exactly a pottery company. He has signed up to play cricket in the like the North Staffs League. If you're one of our international listeners, that's an area of England near Stoke, hence the potteries, I suppose. And it's not, I wouldn't describe it. The people of Wedgwood Cricket Club, so please don't take offence to this if you're listening. I wouldn't describe it as one of the glamour locations to go and play club cricket in the world. So
it's also a region of a county that doesn't have a major county cricket team.
Yeah, this is quite. There's a few reasons why this is strange. What's even more strange, he's signed up for 3 years. It's a 3-year contract, and he'll be playing not at like the top level of the North Staffs Cricket League, which I'm sure is like a decent standard. He's going to be playing in the 4th tier. So he'll be playing with like old men in trainers. Like occasionally they'll turn up against a team and it will be just 12-year-olds on the other side because the first team have all gone on a stag do. It's really genuinely incredible that this is happening. I mean, I'm assuming he's not going to be there every Saturday, but yeah, pretty big scenes. Max, have you ever played against anyone famous for the old Suttonians?
I think the most we managed was we played against Charles Colville, the Sky Sports cricket presenter. Yeah. He was left arm grenade. Yeah. It was his bowling style.
Did he get you out?
No, I had the misfortune of umpiring while he was bowling, and he went round the wicket, he went over the wicket, he went round and through. He asked me to stand back, he asked me to stand closer. He was a bit of a pain in the arse.
Had a lot of variation, in other words.
Yeah, a lot of variation in grenade.
That's good. I don't think I've ever played cricket with anyone particularly famous, which is a shame. Okay, well, we're at risk, I think, a little here, Max, of veering too far off into the wilderness of English club cricket. So let's bring it back into the international game. But first, just a reminder that we are on Patreon. No sponsor for this show, so we're relying on our listeners. dipping into their giant pockets to give us money. Patreon.com/the cricket pod. We will be recording our first Patreon exclusive episode this week, where we will be talking about our best men's player of 2021. We've done a poll on that. I know who the winner is. It's not a huge surprise, but we've got a top 25. We'll go through all of those. It'll be a laugh. You can get that if you sign up as a Patreon for just £4, £5, $7 Aussie dollars, 410 rupees. The Cricket Pod. No, not the cricketpod at gmail.com's our YouTube. Patreon.com/the cricket pod. Max, we're going to do the women's test first.
Yeah.
It's over to you.
Okay, so biscuits, glasses of fine wine, like you've got there, Jack. Sue Gray reports. And women's Ashes tests, all things that you inevitably end up wanting more than one of, I would say. Despite losing a fair chunk to rain, Australia and England served up almost the perfect test match, really. An antidote to the one-way traffic of recent games down under, where all four possible results remained in play throughout, and all throughout a final day, which took as many twists and turns as a twisty-turny thing, to paraphrase a former star of strange comedy in Britain. England started like a train, really. Reduced Australia to 4 for 2 on the first day, before Australia in turn motored away, powered by the twin turbos of Rachel Haynes and Meg Lanning, aided by a little bit of Butterfingers slip. But Catherine Brunt and Nat Siver fought back, the former taking a fifer, either side of an impressive display again from Talia McGrath, and all that ultimately meant that Australia declared on 337 for 9. So, I mean, it was a score that looked at one stage of getting away from England, but they brought it back at the end, and it was sort of, something that was maybe a few too many, but game on still. Unfortunately, much of England's reply picked up where the men left off, with the openers failing. Neither of them made double figures. The middle order collapsed, but out of the gloom came England's knight in shining armour, the captain, putting together one of the all-time great knocks, I think it would be fair to say. 168 not out from 294 balls, and she pretty much single-handedly held up the Australians on their relentless advance, aided by a rearguard action at the end from Sophie Eccleston and a bit of Kate Cross as well. And England somehow, from 120 for 6, scraped their way to within 40 of Australia's total, leaving the game somewhat poised. And they started again quickly with the ball, but it was this time the bionic-jawed Beth Mooney and superstar Elise Perry who did most of the damage. England not able to restrict Australia as much as they would have liked, I suppose, and Australia ended up on 216 for 7 at tea before a bold declaration to keep the game interesting, leaving England with what would have been a record chase, but not unthinkable, 257 from 48 overs. And fast forward a bit, 218 for 3, like you said, Jack, done and dusted, won the game. 40 to get at about 4.5 and over. 7 wickets in hand, no problem. But Sutherland and Alana King combined and ripped through England, throwing a run out for good measure, and it suddenly became a game of survival for England. Right up until the last 2 overs, we were looking at a game where ties, draws, home wins, away wins, all on the cards. But as it was in the end, Kate Cross came to see out, I think, was it 12 of the last 14 balls, to leave the series just about alive. England 12 runs short of a win. Australia 1 wicket short of a win. And it's not over yet. The Ashes isn't over yet, but England do need to win all 3 ODIs to.
So let's go through a few things here. The scores. This means in the multi-format series, it is 6-4, correct, to Australia, with 3 ODIs to play, all worth 2 points. England, as the people who do not currently have the Ashes in their possession, they are dispossessed of Ashes. Will need to win them.
Souls Ashes
to take the series win, or to win the Ashes. A drawn series, 8-all would be a pretty good result down under, but it's worthless.
Great result.
Well, no, it would be worthless. They would not. They would not then be possessed of Ashes. But yes, the series is alive after all of the drama we saw. The second thing, and the thing that I think I want to ask you about the game, Matt. In your opinion, was this a spectacularly brave performance from England against the odds to get so close, or was this one of the biggest chokes you've ever seen?
I think it's both, because the innings from Heather Knight is very much in the category of what you're saying about real battling performance to get as close as they did. And you have to consider that they're playing away against an Australian team who historically have been rather good. But yeah, I mean, 218 for 3, 40 runs to get, that's a choke, in it. Let's be honest. That's you got the run out in there as well. I mean, it was a close run out, but trying to pinch a single, it was just one of those things where it all started to go a bit wrong. I mean, Australia bowled well. That should be said as well. I mean, it was Sutherland in particular, I think, was it on that final day, and Alana King, who
she picked up 3, and 2 for Alana King.
But yeah, I mean, it's not ideal.
It'll be disappointing. I feel
they said afterwards, didn't they? It felt like a defeat. They were all pretty sad, and I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, I think that's virtually exactly what I was going to say. Everyone's played in a match. It doesn't happen so much in cricket, in amateur cricket anymore. The draw's sort of gone out of things, but in football, you're 2-0 up with 5 seconds left, and then you draw 2-2, and it feels like you've lost the game when actually you have drawn. And it felt, to be honest, a bit like this. I did. I mean, I think we should talk maybe more about the Heather Knight performance, because the flip side to this is that England, after a few overs of day 2, or lunch on day 2, they had effectively lost the game.
Yeah.
And then Heather Knight scores 168, which I think is the second highest score in Test cricket against Australia in the women's side of the game. Rachel Heyhoe Flint with the top one on 179. So to give you an idea of what a performance this was, it was a good one. It was an historically impressive knock. I don't know if there's a women's equivalent of the Bannerman. You've heard of the Bannerman in men's Test cricket, right? The guy who in the first Test scored 70% of the runs for Australia, and that is the highest proportion of runs ever scored. I mean, Heather Knight does pretty well on that front here, getting 168 out of 197. That works out as not 197, sorry, 297. That works out as 56% of the runs. That was really astonishing. The second, I mean, I don't know, have you got anything else to add on that?
Well, what was especially...
I was just sort of listing off things from the game.
What I think was especially astonishing about it was just how composed it was. It was pretty much chanceless. There was one tough caught and bowled chance, which would have been a spectacular catch, and that was basically it. With in the context of people falling all around her.
Yes, it was routesque,
and some good bowling as well. It wasn't like this wasn't necessarily England throwing wickets away. It was good bowling from Australia. The ball was doing stuff. There was plenty of swing around. You saw that from the way England's bowlers bowled as well. It was a tough place to be, and she was imperious and highly impressive.
Routesque is what I would say in terms of the volume of runs compared to the other players. It looks a little bit like Joe Root when she bats. On the Australian side, you have to hand it to Beth Mooney, don't you? Who's playing with 2 metal plates fused into her face.
Absolute madness. Yeah, that is commitment to the cause award. Definitely goes to
score 63, takes a great diving catch. One of those ones as well where your face is at risk. It wasn't a sideways dive. It was, I am going to dive with my metal plate face at the cricket ball here and potentially land on it or take one to the shore.
How long's it been? Like a week?
2 weeks, I think. So when did we have Mel Farrell on? Was that 2 weeks ago today,
Yeah.
and that was, or no, it would have been 10 days ago, I think.
She was back in the
Yeah.
nets, wasn't she? Like,
So I think it has been exactly 2 weeks. So we're talking on the Monday here, to go from broken jaw, reset, play, score 63 to set up a win. Well played there. The declaration, Max, before we get to talk about the drama in a little bit more detail, maybe. Why did they declare?
That's a very good question. Because I mean, let's be honest. I think I logically, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In the grander scheme of the Ashes as a contest and wanting to win, you'd think you'd just take the draw, make sure of the draw, and then England have to win 3 ODIs against a team who won 26 ODIs in a row. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Let's be honest. That's not going to happen. So,
well, when you put it like that,
yeah. So to leave the door open for. I mean, I know it was still a record chase, but it was very much doable, as we saw.
5-ish and over, wasn't it?
It wasn't beyond the realms of possibility. There'd been a bit of rain about, so it's not like going to be the worst quality pitch. But I think it was turning a bit, but. Yeah, I mean, it was good for the game itself, and to have the excitement and to show the quality of cricket that there is, and maybe whet the appetite for. We may well talk about it, but adding an extra test or two to the Ashes on the women's side. But in terms of the right decision to try and win the Ashes series, it was a curious one, I would say.
Yeah, and it nearly blew up as England did bat pretty well. I tell you who I was most impressed with, and this won't be a huge shock, I think, for you, Max, was Sophia Dunkley hitting the ball really, really hard for England. What struck me actually about watching her bat versus her contemporaries on both sides is that she seems to, and let me know whether you agree with this or not, prioritize hitting the ball really hard over technique in a way that some of the other players don't. And I just thought the explosiveness of that was going to take England to victory. 45 from 32 with a couple of sixes and 5 fours was impressive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, there's quite a few names in there who have made a bit of a name for themselves in the England side. In the white ball games, Sophia Dunkley's one of those. She came into the white ball side and looked pretty good, and is by all means a promising starlet for the England team in the future, and that kind of experience obviously will have helped England in that chase. Tammy Beaumont at the top. Sophia Dunkley, obviously, you got Brunt and Siver as well, who play all formats. It definitely helps when you have that cross-format experience, and they just basically entered one day mode, didn't they? And it was pretty exciting.
Yes, Max. So two final points that we were sort of asked about, and that we probably should dwell on. One is the question about the number of tests that are played. Obviously, only one in this series. I think you'd probably agree that it should be at least 2 in these bigger series anyway. I mean, there's one for the England team confirmed against South Africa for this summer, but it does seem a bit strange that there's only one here, and that also it's a 4-day test instead of a 5-day test.
Yeah, I mean, the 4-day test probably wasn't such an issue in this instance. There was a bit of rain and we still nearly got a result, although it was, I guess, manufactured to a degree. So you could argue that maybe a 5th day would have benefited from that. I mean, there's not necessarily a reason not to have a 5th day, is there?
I think in this test actually. One of the things we haven't really explicitly said here is that Australia massively deserves to win and we're by miles the better cricket team. And that actually the 4th day it being 4 days has maybe made it more interesting. I think if you look at the piece slightly more broadly though, there are quite a lot of draws in women's cricket.
Yeah.
And I think either having a 5th day or I don't know, you could do something slightly softer, like have a new ball every 60 overs. There are Some differences between the men's and the women's game, for example, express pace not being such a factor in women's cricket versus sort of skill and ability to move the ball. Maybe bringing that new ball through a little bit more often could be a way to sort of, in quotes, speed the game up a little, so that you don't see so many draws. But yeah, on this occasion, I don't think it was such a big deal. I think it just being one test is a shame, especially after the sort of drama. It was everything we were missing from the men's Ashes series, really, wasn't it? It was like the tournament on the line, the possibility that both teams could have won going into the final day. We didn't really see that.
Yeah, I think
at all earlier on.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Having that extra test is probably the main thing that we're missing from this, because I mean, it's in the wider sort of scheme of both Test cricket in general, and that being the pinnacle, and trying to make that the thing that everyone should aim for, men's cricket, women's cricket, whatever, and in terms of expanding women's cricket as a as a concept among people, to try and actually get it, develop women's cricket. Like the 100's done that well, but the test arena is the biggest arena, isn't it? And there should 100% be more of that, because what we've seen has been really, really good. So why not just have more of it? And it's the Ashes. It's like sort of one of the main tournaments that everyone looks forward to. So to have one game that sort of is kind of key to the whole thing seems questionable, especially if you're going to play half of them in England and it's going to rain half the time and you've only got 4 days. you want to hedge your bets a bit.
Absolutely. Max, I lost you a little bit there on the internet, but that we'll sort that out in the post edit. I think that's that for this test. There are 3 ODIs to come, so we'll be covering those probably on next week's show. Hopefully England can make a little bit of a game of it, win the first one at least, so that it's live for a little bit longer. We will take a short break, or if you're on YouTube, disappear and be back on a different video, or after the break if you're not on YouTube. Hope that made sense. Probably
perfectly clear.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.